There's no discharge in the war.
Greetings and salutations, guys. I'm here with my review of 28 Years Later, the long-awaited third film in the 28 Days Later franchise. This one featuring the return of Danny Boyle as director and Andrew Garland as writer. It took a long time for this movie to happen, obviously. We never even got 28 months later, which still is a shame. But it is great that it finally happened, and it's great that it happened with Boyle and Garland, who did not work on the second one. Boyle had a little bit of involvement, but Garland had none, and clearly both their careers have thrived in the time since. Garland's first movie as a screenwriter was 28 Days Later, and now he is such a successful writer and director. So I'm very glad that they wanted to come back to do this movie, and I'm very happy with the end result of this movie. You can guess by the title how long this is into this post-apocalyptic world where a rage virus has turned much of the population into zombie-like creatures who will attack anyone and transmit this virus to anyone that they bite or actually have any bodily fluid transfer into. And we see how things have evolved in the British Isles. In this movie, the British Isles are completely quarantined because this is where the outbreak happens. I'll just address for a second that 28 weeks later is not really directly talked about here, and some people are going to have a real issue with the fact that this movie doesn't acknowledge the ending of 28 weeks later and the implication of that ending as far as where the virus was spreading. I can hand wave it away, which I think is what the movie's doing, and say they dealt with it. Okay, in this world, the British Isles is where this is taking place, where this has all been quarantined, and we have this family at the center of it that is our focus. Father Jamie, Mother Isla, and their son Spike. They live in a community that is a protected community and a walled-in community. You know what it is. You've seen post-apocalyptic movies, who try to do everything they can to keep out the infected, or maybe anyone else out there they should keep out. And what happens when the son Spike, he is now 12 years old, and his dad Jamie decides it's time for Spike to venture out, to go beyond the wall, as they have to do sometimes to get supplies. And what Spike learns out there, what he sees out there, and how he makes some big decisions based on what he learns out there, that, of course, will continue to keep this family in danger and in the sights of the infected. I really like the idea of a contained apocalypse. I remember on the podcast I do with my friend Matt Fowler, we joked about this when we were watching the Mad Max movies. And what if this was only happening in Australia and everything else was normal? That is the conceit of the 28 Days Later franchise at this point, is that it is a zombie-ish apocalypse in Great Britain, except the rest of the world is functioning, we presume, like our world, with our technology, and they have evolved the way we evolved over the last, 28 years, but not in this reality for these people who are, quarantined and can never see that, never know that. And if you're a kid especially, you just won't really have any connection to that previous world. And I just think there's something really cool about that. This movie touches upon that a little bit. It doesn't dive super deep into it, but it is interesting sort of overlay for what they're doing here. Having Danny Boyle come back as director obviously stands out a lot. He directed the first film, not the second movie. When he directed the first movie, he was only, a few years off of Trainspotting, the movie that really kind of put him on the map, and he felt like he brought that kind of indie sensibility to it. But in a way, 28 Years Later feels more like it from the director of Trainspotting than 28 Days Later. It really kind of goes big on that vibe, on that feel. Some of it directly because there's more of sort of a music to it. There's more, rock songs played behind it. But also it does evoke sort of that handheld feel like the first movie did. And it works really well. It does make this distinct. There's a reason that 28 Days Later was the movie that really kind of brought zombie movies back in a mainstream way, because it was doing something different with it. And you can see Boyle directing this, especially because he didn't direct the second movie, which I like, but distinctly is not a Danny Boyle movie. Him coming back is great to sort of really set things on this new path, and you really feel like, this is a great fit for him. Yeah, I really like the sort of scrappy rock and roll energy that Boyle brings to this that makes it feel distinctly 28 Days Later. That being said, there are also some flourishes that I think are a little bit distracting, maybe a little bit too pointed, and kind of take you out of the movie, especially in the first third. Some of the things he does with action, he does a lot of freeze frames and stylistic choices that I think do kind of undercut the tension in what are some pretty tense sequences, because for a second you're thinking about the technique of what he just did, rather than just letting it play out. There's also something he does where he does a lot of montage moments where he is overlaying actual like footage and shots from old movies. It feels a little too underlining a point about sort of the cycle of man and how this is a story that's been told before, and how certain things kind of end up happening in different ways. I didn't think we needed that underlining. And so some of those decisions, especially in the first third of the movie, I did find distracting. Overall, though, I really dug 28 Years Later, and I especially appreciated how odd it gets as Spike goes to explore this world he's never really seen beyond the walls of where he grew up, and discovers all of the dangerous and distinct people that are out there, many of whom are infected, but some who are not. The cast also is fantastic. Aaron Taylor Johnson plays Jamie, the dad, and he's an interesting actor because sometimes I think he can be a little dull on screen, other times I think he can be quite good. But this is his best performance yet. He shows that Jamie loves his son, but he is also a man who grew up in this world and has kind of completely embraced it, for better or worse. And often the worst side of that is that he is pushing this 12-year-old kid to embrace killing and embrace danger in a way that feels way too fast. As Isla, the great Jodie Comer feels like she might have a bit of a thankless role in the early scenes because she's playing this bedridden woman, Spike's mom, Isla, and so it just feels like, oh, is this kind of going to be just seeing her in this bed, saying some sort of nonsense? But as the movie goes on, first of all, she gets out of the bed. And second of all, we get to see more of Isla. We get to know Isla more. And you definitely get to see why they cast Jodie Comer, because she's so good. And she only gets a handful of scenes to really show the inner life of this character, but of course she nails them all, and I think that she does a lot of heavy lifting with this role and really makes you love this woman. And then you've got Ralph Fiennes as Dr. Kelson, who's a guy who kind of seems to have gone off the reservation. When the apocalypse began, he did not go behind any walls for protection. He did not join any community, and he is a bit of a mysterious figure out there who is doing some very strange things that eventually Spike is going to encounter. He really seems to be relishing the chance to play this guy who is, just kind of decided to go down his own path in this apocalypse, and I really enjoyed that role. But the actual lead of this movie is Alfie Williams as Spike, this 12-year-old kid. The entire movie really rests on him, and the entire movie lives or dies on whether you invest in him, and I thought Williams was terrific. I know some people might kind of put up a barrier when they hear, oh, this movie centers on a kid, but he is not a plucky, overly precocious kid. He carries with him this sort of innate sadness. He is a kid who has only known this world, only known the rage virus is something to fear that is right there outside the walls, and is carrying a burden of what's going on with his family and his mom being sick. And I think he is just really terrific. He's a real find, this kid. And I'm so glad that they did find him because, I was surprised to see that the movie was centered so much on him. And then I think it really justifies itself by the end why it's doing that. And now he was the right actor to play this role. And then on a world building level, I really like how Garland and Boyle have taken the title. It's 28 years later, and they are showing the evolution of things. And again, this movie centers on the idea of the infected. They are not undead zombies. They are people that have this rage virus. And we now see that there are different types of infected, how they look, how they act, how they behave. And I thought that was really interesting. And I really liked getting to get those glimpses even more of what's going on there and ponder the possibilities of what we're seeing. And kudos to all of the actors playing the infected, because most of them are buck-ass naked, covered in dirt and mud, and having to run like hell at people. Feels like it must have been a pretty thankless job. A lot of long days on set in that situation. They really go for it, and they certainly sell the terror of these rage-infected naked people running at you And yeah, how horrible that would be. Oh, and I also want to mention Edvig Writing, who has a smaller role as someone who's representing the outside world and the soldiers that are tasked with holding that quarantine out there. And in just a few scenes, he's very charming, very funny, brings a very different energy to the movie that I really appreciated. And it's also in his scenes that you really do understand that Garland and Boyle want you to also have fun here. You know, this is not a comedy horror movie. This isn't Zombieland, but it is kind of playing it matter of fact about the world these people live in and that it's been going on for so long. And the fact that this is a strange situation because it's not the whole world. And people are reacting in very different ways to it. And yeah, I really appreciated that quirkiness throughout the movie, which really presents itself in a big way right at the end. An ending that I think will be, I don't know if divisive is the right word. It's probably overstating it. But I think that some people will be really kind of baffled by the ending if they don't know there is another movie that is coming next year, that this is the first of a new trilogy. They've already shot the next movie. Nia DaCosta directed it, and it's just around the corner. They don't do anything at the end to explicitly tell you that, but it does end on kind of a non-ending way. It introduces something new and then, you know, cuts to credits, and it does make this movie feel like maybe it should have had a more sort of crescendo to it, because there is not a big finale in the way you might expect, and it does kind of pass the baton in a way that might be a little too low key, because it's not fair to expect everyone who goes in to understand that there's another movie coming. And I think even on its own terms, maybe something bigger might have happened near the end. But I did enjoy this absolutely bizarre thing that happens near the end, getting another glimpse, another little look at how strange this world is now. And it's a big swing. And I think some people might go, what the hell is... Well, I think everyone will say what the hell is going on, but I said what the hell is going on in a very appreciative way. And it involves a new group of actors who we're going to see more of in the next movie, and I am very excited to see where we go with that. Also, of course, they keep teasing us with Cillian Murphy, who, you know, starred in the original, his breakout role, his first real notable role, and he is a producer on this movie. We've been told he'll be back eventually in the sequels. And so, yeah, I look forward to that. I'm just really glad this world is back. I really did love the first movie so much, and I did enjoy the second one. I hope they don't completely ignore the second one going forward. I would love some mentions of some of those things there just to kind of tie up some loose ends. I would also love to see a couple characters from that movie if they just deem that worthy. It might not happen, though, right? Because Boyle and Garland didn't do that movie, and I'm sure just don't feel the same connection to it. That's understandable. But they're back in this world, back in this realm, and it's really fun to have it. And I don't think it all works. Like I said, Boyle maybe gets a little too, specific at times. He maybe gets a little too going into those directorial flourishes. But by and large, I think that this movie has its own distinct feel. And in a world filled with zombie movies and filled with post-apocalyptic movies and movies where we've seen the basic conceits of, you know, what's humanity doing and locking themselves in a, you know, walled off city and, the danger of other people in this society, along with the danger of whatever's out there, the zombies, or in this case, the infected. This movie still really justifies its existence as far as, you know, doing its own thing. And even in the world of a million Walking Dead series and The Last of Us and everything else. So glad to have 28 Days Later franchise back. Glad to have 28 Years Later finally in theaters this weekend. All right, guys, those are my thoughts on 28 Years Later. If you can like and subscribe, that would be great. See you next time.